Hey there. Welcome back to the Biofield Hacker channel. Apparently, I'm clearing my throat like I'm making a big speech today. As always, before we dive in, just a quick note, I'm not a medical, psychological, legal, or financial expert, nor do I claim to be. I was poked to do a video series around finding my best and highest energetic self through self-love. And being very candid, this was one of the hardest processes that I've ever undergone. And it unfolded in stages. If you'd like to hear the entire story, you can view it on my other YouTube channel on Global Divine Alchemy. But I was poked to share snippets on this channel in order for you to inspire, hopefully, your own reflection about how it can dramatically affect your energy. Honestly, I think self-love is so often talked about and so rarely done well. And so I guess that's why I was poked to channel these series. And at this point, because I channel just in time kind of thing, I don't know how many will be part of it, but you'll see it on the videos. It'll be part 1, part 2, however many parts it is. All right, today we're going to dig into the first piece, loving yourself enough to insist on healthy relationships for yourself. Well, there's way more to the story, and you can find deeper content to dig into your own energy blockages in the programs on biofieldhacker.io, in the Biofield Hacker Lab programs, easy for me to say. Let me share a bit of my journey around relationships. And let me be super clear before I start talking. This is not about other people. This is about me. Being rawly honest with myself, doing a deep dive on what blockages and self-limited beliefs were deeply embedded into my subconscious. Then I needed to dig out at the root to live my best energies and manifest my best life. They were patterns that I kept repeating ad nauseum without even realizing it. And it took my world getting rocked by the universe for me to open my eyes, my proverbial eyes, and really see what I was enabling in my life. I'm someone who has a very deep history of taking too much ownership for relationships. I always try to think about how I can do better, be better, love harder, meet people where they are. But in doing that, I truly wasn't seeing the forest through the trees. I legitimately thought that there was something wrong with the way I looked, the way I was showing up. I kept giving my absolute all and best and kept falling short. And that is when, after months and months of dissection, reflection, etc., that I had this sudden realization that it wasn't about me at all. I realized, well, it was about me, but it was about my choices. Let me tell you what I mean. I realized that I had legitimately surrounded myself with a circle that was completely a dichotomy from what I believed and how I loved. My free pass that I kept giving them was they held my heart. So I kept giving them a free pass because they held my heart. And that was actually a flaw. Not me and how I was showing up, but that fact. So let me share with you a little bit more, because I'm not doing a very good job of articulating it. But this really changed me at the core. And in the end, it was so freeing. One quick side note, one of those processes was just understanding just because someone has a title in your life doesn't make it okay for them to be negative. That was on an earlier video, so I wanted to reference that in case you wanted more information about that. But back to my stories. There's a quote attributed to Freud that says, before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, first make sure you're not, in fact, surrounded by assholes. In my quick research, I found that he didn't actually say it, so I don't know who said it. But whoever did was a genius in my book. Such an apt saying to empower you. Once you are rawly honest with yourself about how you are showing up, and then enable objective reflection. I was able to, objectively, for what probably was the first time in my life, to look through a data-driven and logical lens instead of my emotions for once. I really took a hard look at the people that I had chosen to surround myself, my closest circle. And that filtering process, suffice to say, was absolutely shocking. I realized when I wasn't emotional about it, that in my logical processing of the data, that I was surrounded by people, most of my closest circle, in fact. They didn't even ask who I was or what I wanted. They were too busy focused on their own definitions of what they wanted and needed, and what they wanted and needed me to be, and I was too happy to give. I had a fundamental tower of realizing that I was objectively, truly not getting anything back, nor being nurtured, nor was it emotionally or physically safe. Nor did anyone take even 1 second out to consider if they were even seeing me. They were too busy being focused on themselves. And I, because I always helped people and cared about people, didn't even pause to reflect on the fact that I was the only one giving everything. I was shocked to find out that I was pretty deluded and delusional in thinking that others would be there for me, saw me. Of course they did, I thought. I just assumed it. I just always needed very little until I actually dramatically needed them, and they weren't there. Guess the universe knew, as it does, I needed a very dramatic telenovela happening caused by some of those closest to me, for me to actually pause long enough to realize that it was completely one-sided. The universe forced me to go complete hermit mode for my physical protection, and as it unfolded, I learned that it was actually for my emotional protection too. I learned that the gift of it was so I could be solely in my own energy, so I could really see for once and for all the gift that I was for others, for myself and others. So I could discern how to maximize my own energy ROI spend, or my energy spend for greatest ROI. Let me tell you, it was pretty damn enlightening to find the most peace and joy being solely by myself when the outside chaos was truly externally created havoc. I'm sure someday I'll tell that full story so you can have the full context, but suffice to say, the gift, although it took me a ton of processing, loss, self-reflection, raw honesty, and painful growth, being in my own energy, sans my closest circle, was incredibly peaceful, joyful, and happy. I had the energy to breathe. I had the energy to be happy, just enjoying the small moments. I had all the energy to create, to help people who are grateful for it, who saw me, who reciprocated. And I found so much energy to focus on indulging my intellectual curiosity and passions, because I wasn't expending that energy on nonsense and drama and helping. I like to say I cut those little energetic vampires off at the source. I wasn't secretive, but rather private. I was more discerning about access to me, who I shared with about me and my life. People now were on a need-to-know basis based on how they actually showed up versus who I thought them to be, based on their actions versus my emotions. And it was incredibly liberating. To be clear, I did it to myself. I put up with the energy vampires for so long and valued myself, subconsciously of course, so little. I didn't even love and value myself enough for it to even blip on my radar to reflect on previously. I just gave and loved and wanted the best for peeps and cared and listened and tried with all my might to connect, to hear what they dreamed about, what challenged them, to help them clean up their messes, and to be there to help uplift them to the best of my ability. Now believe me, I'm pretty flawed, but I always did my best and showed up authentically and honestly and loved and cared. But the true data is that was never mirrored back. They probably couldn't even tell you that I gave about what I give a shit about. Besides monkeys or travel adventures, surface level facts about my life. They didn't even care to know me. And the honest truth is, I let them for so many years. I was objectified, and even worse, I enabled my own playing small treatment and subjugation to the objectifying. I enabled it. I didn't put up any boundaries, standards, or expectations of respect or reciprocity. I literally taught them how to treat me based on my own unhealed wounds without knowing it. I didn't want to talk over their head, of course, from my perspective, or bore them with my fascination of philosophies or quantum physics or what makes society tick or how I anticipated blockchain and spatial tech would impact everything. It was fine to squelch my passionate rigors in conversations. I allowed, for a very long time, I was ashamed to admit, that I think I relished the identity of always helping and giving space for endless hours of lending an ear to talk about the latest TV shows and nonsense cultural happenings. I haven't even owned a TV in 15 plus years. How they were concerned about keeping up with the Joneses or how Susie Q treated them or whatever nonsense, to me anyways, superficial time suck du jour they wanted to discuss. Why, you ask? Well, because it meant something to them, and they meant a lot to me. I came from the heart and wanted to hear what made their heart sing. But I was given the gift, albeit in a very dramatic fashion, that it's okay to love those peeps from afar who can't reciprocate the way you need and want. It's okay to have hard stop boundaries. That those who aren't aligned with you are just that, not aligned. Period. It doesn't mean they're better or worse. They're just not aligned. I realize that those who are aligned with my best energies are people who come from the heart all in, or don't come at all. I'm not judging other people, but just rather you're not vibing with my energetic needs, if that's not how you come. I don't want people in my life who aren't emperors and empresses in tarot card language, who have the wisdom of all 4 core cards, not whimsical wannabes who don't make shit happen. Because the reality is, I do. Here's the difference. I realized and now know deep in my core that I don't actually need anyone. I have me. And I fully, completely meet my own needs. I always knew and practiced that superficially, but with my own self-love in the mix, it's now deeply foundational with every thought, decision, action, and behavior. And now that I'm not leaking my energy around, I'm able to fully own those boundaries through the lens of what I want. I do want those that are full-hearted, authentic, and curious people in my life, as it adds, and it helps me grow too. Those people of the old loved my strength until I used it to advocate for myself. And then it became a challenge because I was too sensitive or illogical, or why couldn't I embrace their opinion or way for my life? But now that I own my self-sovereignty and power, and my strength is utilized for me, and those that love me in the way I require back, it's more challenging. And so they're no longer part of my inner circle, and that's okay, because I still love them and probably love them more unconditionally, from afar. Self-love and clarity is everything. So that brings me to today's simple field hack. I just want you to ask yourself, who are the energy vampires in your life? And when you figure that out, what prevents you from cutting them off at the source? Again, there's some deeper programs and resources that can be found on the biofieldhacker.io site if you want to create your own blueprint and journey to explore your own embodied self-love and healthy relationships. Until next time, have a great day.